Hello, and welcome to Retrospective Cinema, a podcast wherein we'll endeavor week after week to see the full filmographies of chosen directors. We'll interpret, critique, and discuss. I am your co-host, Annie Morell.
And I'm your other co-host, Ryan Saylor. This week, we join Fellini as a child, young adult, full-grown adult in all kinds of past and present converging in dreamlike reality as only Fellini does. This is Fellini's Roma. Here's a clip.
Non a caso qui c'è la chiesa, il governo e il cinema. Tutte cose che producono illusione. Come fa tu? Come fa io? Sempre più il mondo si avvicina alla fine perché è troppo popolare.
Gli americani.
Troppe macchine, veleni. E quale posto migliore?
Once again, that was from Fellini's Roma, or Federico Fellini's Roma. Has various titles that are all essentially the same thing, but there they are.
Rome.
Yeah, none of them just say that.
Yeah, they didn't do that for the English version. Interesting.
I'll say up front, we are a full spoiler podcast, just get that one out of the way. But I will say, I think it would actually benefit you, listener, if you haven't experienced this, to be spoiled this week. Instead of a warning, it's an encouragement, because this is a very dense work, and the way it's designed is pretty fascinating. And I'm excited to get into this with you, Annie, not the listener, this week. But before we head all into that, we actually did get a series of bits of feedback from friend of the show, Court.
Yeah, friend of the show, Court, commented on our episode on Phantom Thread from our Paul Thomas Anderson series. And she said, really enjoyed this episode, as PTA is possibly my all-time favorite filmmaker. And Phantom Thread is one that captivated my heart from the first time I saw it in cinema. In consideration of this toxic relationship being one that we should admonish, I wonder if it's so bad since there is consent and it makes their dynamic work so well, as they really are perfect for each other. Sort of like folks who are into BDSM. If they consent to it and they're not hurting anyone else, is it wrong? This particular comment got censored by Spotify.
It's true.
Because of its, I assume, reference to BDSM.
Yeah, it didn't get, thrown in the garbage. It just got sent to us for, do you want this? And it's like, yes, we do want this.
Yeah. No one's soliciting anything from us. It's fine. Yeah, I really like this point, because that's always been my view of that film, is like, even if they both like it, this is still messed up, but viewing it through a sort of like consensual power play lens, I think is very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's certainly there. I think just the way PTA presents that relationship and how it evolves, and even, the final moments all show that there is a beauty to what's going on, even if it is also horrifying. And that's part of what makes that film so interesting. I'm glad to hear her point it out.
Yeah. And then also from the Paul Thomas Anderson series, she commented on our episode about Licorice Pizza. Really love the mini review of Anima, as that is one of my all-time favorite short films that I could also talk about all day. So much good conversation here. Thanks, Courtney. I love Licorice Pizza, and although I also saw it in cinema in 2021 and enjoyed it then, the second watch solidified it as a favorite rom-com. I found the vibe ultimately comforting. Also wanted to point out, Bradley Cooper famously directed A Star is Born, and he's been directing ever since. Curious if either of you saw Maestro, which I did. I did see Maestro. I'm pretty mid on Bradley Cooper as a director. I haven't seen A Star is Born. I need to see more to really solidify my opinion on him.
There you go. I've only seen A Star is Born, which I actually love that film. I did a marathon on a Saturday, actually a couple months ago, where I watched all 4 versions of A Star is Born, and it's the second best version, so there you go.
4 births in a row. That's brutal.
Yeah. I have not seen Maestro, and I haven't seen his most recent one, Is This Thing On? So I don't know, how I feel about him overall, but I think that movie, A Star is Born, is great, and I guess I should get around to Maestro to see what connections Courtney's making here.
Yeah. I also am happy to see the Anima shout out, because that was one of the kind of extracurricular outside of the main feature film things that we watched that really made me glad that we are doing that we are covering full filmographies,
Yeah.
even supplementary work, because it's just an incredible piece of art. Check it out on Netflix if you haven't seen it. It's a short film. It's really short, and it's, if you like Radiohead, we talk about it in that episode.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to our main discussion.
I'm very curious to hear what you have to say on this. When I immediately finished the film, I was left a little perplexed. I didn't necessarily like or dislike what I'd experienced. It wasn't that simple. It was me sitting there aware that I had experienced something with near objective artistic merit, but not quite sure if it all came together or if it was even trying to. But as I sat with it more and I started reading what some other people have said, interpretations and such, I actually think this is a very impressive film, and I would like to revisit it. I actually started rewatching it today.
Oh, no way.
After finishing it, yeah. Which I ran out of time on the rewatch before we started, but I watched until the last possible minute. And yeah, I'm curious what we get to here. I'm coming into this relatively open-minded about whether it does fully succeed or not in what it's trying to do. Right now, I'm leaning toward that it does, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see where we get to. I think, as I talked about a lot with Knights of Cabiria, and then kind of as came up again with 8.5, I think this is another culminating work for him. I think this wraps up some of the stuff he's been exploring for a while. I, once again, am very curious where he goes from here. Although, actually, I have seen On Record, so I guess I do know. But
wow.
We can start wherever you want. It's a dreamy film. I don't mind floating around the discussion with you, but where would you like to begin?
Well, I'll start with just my general impression, which is not dissimilar to yours. I think maybe I have a more distinct idea of like what I liked and didn't like. I think the back half of the film is a lot more interesting and ultimately successful to me than the first hour, 45 minutes. I think it kind of finds its footing for me. But yeah, I too am, I mean, I went into this semi-traumatized by the clowns, not by, clowns themselves, but by his previous film, E-Clown. And this also being a docufiction, I was like, oh boy. I really did not care for this kind of either time that he's tried it now, because he also did that in Fellini, A Director's Notebook, the short that we talked about. And also, I liked the bits of Rome that we saw in La Dolce Vita, and like his kind of reverence and also complicated feelings of the path of Rome shown there. So yeah, I think we're going to figure out together whether this is ultimately a successful film. I feel like, if anything, I am leaning more in the opposite direction slightly than you. That it doesn't quite work, though, as I said, like, it's hard when the ending to me was so much stronger, because that's the thing, obviously, that I am coming off of the most.
Okay. I guess I'm all the more excited because I liked more of the front half. So wow. We'll get through this.
Okay. Yeah, well, I mean, in some ways it's structured similarly to The Clowns, in that it starts out with like a baby Fellini.
Presumably Fellini. I think it's key that we never get his name. I think Fellini distances himself just enough, but yes, I too assume that it's mostly him.
Sure, but it is, I mean, he does show up, he himself, in the...
Yes.
There's kind of 3 eras of time that we're in, and really just 2, like kind of in the midst of World War II Italy, and then like 1970s Italy, and then the beginning is, him as a child for a little bit, but we don't really return to that.
Mm-hmm. It begins with him as this kid, and then we get introduced to probably the main protagonist, which is, him as a young adult, and then there is him making the film, and then it alternates, so it never goes all the way back. When he's a kid, I think the more important part, and this is actually why I immediately started this by saying I think it's beneficial to be spoiled on this one. Immediately upon restarting the film, there's a lot more in the prologue that makes sense after the fact. Knowing that the film isn't really going to be about Fellini, I started paying attention to the other things. The first thing right off the bat, you get just boom, 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 3 portrayals of Julius Caesar. One is, yes, so all these boys that are dressed in exactly the same garb, paying attention to their domineering headmaster, are told to recreate Caesar at the Rubicon, which is an event I wasn't super familiar with, I'm not gonna lie. But apparently he crossed this river, I have no idea. But it's hyped up as this big epic thing, this, monumental, transcendent moment that there's glory in them recreating it. And then when you see it, they're just kind of walking across a tiny pond, and the headmaster's got an injured foot and he's limping, and there's not anything that excited about it. And then we cut to the boys in a courtyard, and there's a statue of Caesar, except half his face is missing, and he's missing an arm. And, what should be, again, a statue, like something that isn't moving, that is there forever to show the beauty of this, is fading away. And the boys instead stare up at this window of this woman with her butt hanging out the window, which women's butts, a key motif in this film. We'll talk about them a lot.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. Yeah, there's even another one with the boys.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Because there's that slideshow where there's a lady in a thong and you see her butt and they all get excited. And
yeah,
the headmaster and the teacher are like, anyone who looks at this will go to hell. It's so good.
They end up going to this actual production of Julius Caesar, and it's overacted to hell, and Caesar dies unceremoniously, and he's overshadowed by the person playing him. And just back to back, I think we get this conversation from Fellini, and I've already talked for a couple minutes on this. I've probably talked longer than these scenes in the film, but just very quickly you get this full portrayal of what we think is going to last versus what does. And I think that idea is going to be really what is explored the rest of the film, along with the power of sexuality, which is what we were bringing up, and what you were talking about with the scene. It's so good. Yeah, they're looking at these key places in Rome, and they cheer for the altar of the emperor, because there's a lot in this film about whether you should bow down to fascists.
Yeah,
and then somehow this slide shows up of this semi-nude woman, and they go nuts. Finally, and they're released from bowing to fascism by the power of ass. So there's something there.
Yeah, doing what you love will set you free, I guess.
Though neither here nor there, this immediately does transition to a funny anecdote that I'll insert. So I've been watching as much as I can on disc. I have this box set from Criterion, like we've talked about before, and my copy of Roma has a glitch or a part where it's fallen apart or something in the scan. So right when it transitioned to him as a young adult, my disc froze, and then it wouldn't play, and then my player said the disc didn't exist. All kinds of things. So I finally got it to work, but while watching was like, yep, there it is, the fleeting nature
wow
of what we think is preserved. It's just gone in an instant. Anyway, once I got the film working again, the last scene with the young Fellini, we get him kind of looking at the train, and he once again is, as a callback to Eva Delony, I think, he's the one that kind of perks up and thinks about leaving to get on a train. I do think this film interacts with Fellini's other films quite a bit.
Yeah.
And so then from there, we leave the child and never see him again.
Yeah, we skip to Fellini, but not Fellini, moving into this kind of boarding house, guest house in Rome. There's a lot of weird people at this guest house, and there's a really extended scene at this big, it's like a courtyard street, I don't know, open street where there's, a restaurant operating and people eating. And it's sort of this big pastiche of just the Roman people at that time. No specific group really being followed. There's kind of one family they sort of focus on. But we just get like little snippets of these random people's nights on the streets of Rome. And I was kind of like, okay, so this is what it's gonna be for the whole time. And we do get cool, there's a lot of like really cool shadow work throughout this.
Oh yeah.
Like once the party has died down and no one's out and it's just like the street dogs really late at night, there's a great shot of their shadows going along the wall, making them appear to be giant dogs. But it's like flashing because someone's like shooting off fireworks in the vicinity. And then we cut to Fellini as himself in the 1970s, stuck in traffic, trying to film Rome. Traffic these days, am I right? That's what it felt like.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on there. It kind of annoyed me at first, and then I grew to love it by the end, where Fellini just films something for like a long time. I think this film starts a discussion on, what we give value to. And I think it builds into that permanent versus fleeting, the monumental versus the evanescent. So Fellini just starts filming traffic.
Yeah, they've got this whole big dolly. They're like, might as well use it.
And immediately we do have like people on their 9 to 5 like yelling at the camera crew, which I thought was funny. They're like, like what are you doing? Like you're causing this to be worse than it already
move
is.
along.
Yeah. We get cross-cutting from the people paying a toll to enter Rome and prostitutes that you would pay a toll to engage with. So I thought that was clever and funny.
I liked they're stuck in traffic at one point, literally right outside the Colosseum.
Yes. So good.
It's this juxtaposition of old and new, which, is not new to Fellini. Like he's done that a lot in his past work, juxtaposing old and new Rome.
Going back a moment that you talked about just a second ago, I don't want to interrupt, but you were talking about the dogs getting scared. That's the first of a number of scenes in this movie where our protagonists aren't there. Like it's just something else happening. And I think it is key that, we see those dogs unable to engage, because I think there is a lot of nature being unable to stay in Rome on this freeway. We have this horse that's just so displaced, just running.
Yeah. There's like a rickshaw among it too that feels really out of place. Yeah.
Yeah, eventually we have this tusk, like this is a much later scene, but they have to dig out archaeological things preserving the old world just because they're trying to build something. I forget exactly what. Oh, in a really horrible scene, we get like this dead cat that's chucked at a stage.
Yeah.
The natural world is gone here. And I think there's a mourning of that throughout the movie that begins with those dogs and then, shows up again on this freeway and will keep showing up.
Also in this same sequence on this freeway, there's a point where they pass another bit of Roman ruins, and the way that they because it's nighttime at this point, and the way that they capture this, and I'm assuming this is just the technique at the time, is they shoot a flare gun off nearby. So there's this big overhead light source that lights up the bit of ruins they're trying to capture on film, and it made me think of, we talked about how brilliantly the nighttime beach scene in La Strada was captured. And I just thought they must have been shooting off flare guns. And that this is why they cannot capture sound, because they're just blasting flares. But yeah, so I like, the kind of, he seems very taken still with the kind of peek behind the curtain, and this is how we do it type reveal, both romanticizing filmmaking and also kind of dispelling the romance by showing the tricks.
Yeah, there was, I forget, it's right around here. I forget what scene it's heading toward. It might be toward the Variety Theater. But did you notice there's a transition where it fades to black, and then like what would be the fade in is instead like a curtain or a cloth being ripped off the camera?
Oh, I'm not sure I did notice that. That's cool.
Yeah, and it's a strange fourth wall break because it's not acknowledged by anyone, and it's not like the curtain was in the scene. But I don't think it was purely like technical. I think it's another reminder of exactly what you're saying, the peek behind the curtain.
Haha.
Well, geez. Yeah, I guess.
They've like finally made it to, whatever destination they're trying to get to. And there are all these hippies that have overrun Rome, all these foreign hippies just hanging out. Someone says, I wonder if they're on their way to work. And someone else says, on their way to work, then it must not be Rome. So there's this feeling clearly of the locals at the time that, nobody works anymore. And I think, that's explored throughout, is the idea that it's such a cyclical thing to have people kind of come of age and be like, back in my day, and it just happens over and over again when the world really hasn't changed that much. I liked that kind of. I mean, we're living through that right now. It's like, oh, I've seen this stuff before. Oh boy.
No, there's a line. Well, he's talking to a handful of people, Fellini himself, and someone says, are you going to try to capture Rome objectively? And he says something to the effect of like, no, I can only really show what I know. I thought that was really neat. It's acknowledgement that, this isn't any kind of objective portrayal of Rome. This is clearly Fellini's Rome, which is the title. I think the title is great because it really is using Rome as a starter point for a discussion of topics rather than any kind of actual look at the city.
I mean, you do get a physical look at the city and it's, the layers of history there.
Yes.
And somewhere in my reading, someone said kind of the only character in this, which I don't know if I fully agree with this because I do think Fellini is a real character in this, but the only real character in this is Rome herself.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think we got that with La Dolce Vita, where it was both let's look at Rome and let's look at the past and present of the world and see how those interact. But I almost think this is, just converging on a place that means a lot to Fellini to look at, what prevails and what falls apart and how sex interacts with the world and whether we should submit to full authority or try to live our lives or where the balance is. And he uses Rome because it has all those ideas and it's filled with art, but it's filled with, suffering and war across time. And it has everything he needs. But I don't know. I don't think this film is particularly interested in any kind of objective Rome. I think it's just a subjective means to an end to explore these topics.
It might be worth skipping to a moment near the end with none other than Gore Vidal.
Incredible.
So, in real life, Gore Vidal shows up in this, and they dub him, of course. Which I was like, I don't know. There are people speaking English. There are random extras speaking English at a couple of points, but they chose to dub over him. Whatever. That's neither here nor there. One thing he says is the church, the government, and the film industry all produce illusions, and they are all based in Rome. And I think that made me, and maybe this is, also what you're hinting at, that like a rewatch or going in knowing a bit about this film would be helpful, because I think looking back, those are kind of the three things that we look at. I mean, we look at the film industry, both in the 70s, them going around Rome, like we've been talking about. In, the order of the film, we're about to get to the burlesque and variety show big scene, which is, obviously the precursor to film. We have movie theater scenes early on. We have a papal fashion show late in the game. There's maybe I shouldn't get into this right now, but I do think, in those three things, if you've seen the film, the one thing you might think I am missing in that list is brothels, because there are two brothels that are big parts of this, but he absolutely equates the Catholic Church to a brothel in this. And so I think that's lumped in there. And then for the government, the third thing in that list that Gore Vidal provided, we see the rise of fascism and how Romans were embracing it or rejecting it. So I think those are kind of the three identities of Rome, maybe four. If you want to separate the church and brothels, by all means, go for it. But those are kind of the different parts of Rome, the main parts of like what make Rome. That, and I guess the history, which we also get into here. So for me, it's like, it's this portrait of like what makes this place, all these elements converging in one city.
I feel like we're kind of saying the same thing in different ways, but maybe it's just the outcome that we interpret differently. Like, I think you're saying that Fellini is doing this portrait of Rome and it becomes these things, and I think Fellini is doing this portrait of these things and it becomes Rome.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, either way, I agree with both. So I guess we are saying the same thing. Wow. But do you want to dive more directly into this variety show?
Yeah, so this scene, I actually like had to pause because I was so taken aback for a moment. I think I don't know, for a moment there I felt like I really knew Fellini. And what it was I mean, this was so in line with Variety Lights, his first film, which we talked about at this point 3 months ago. We've been here a while. And this is back in the previous time. This is not present day in the movie. I was like, wow, Fellini's memory is much like that scene in this movie. And then as I thought about that, I was like, wait, is the movie his memory or is the memory his movie? Ooh. And I don't know quite how to word it better than that, but I wonder if, like, just for a moment, it felt like I really got to understand mentally how he perceived the world. Because I think to him, that moment shows that his memory of events and his portrayal of things in art are equally valuable. And yeah, I mean, it affected the rest of the movie for me because there is so much that could be real or could be fake. And I think that helped me because it seemed like just for a second there, Fellini was really letting the viewer in to say, like, yeah, it's all the same to him.
Okay, like what specifically about this scene? Like just the level of like crassness?
Well, no, but because it seems like this is very much supposed to be Fellini as a young adult exploring Rome, and yet this scene is directly in Variety Lights, like to a degree. And I couldn't tell, if the scene in Variety Lights was based on his memory, or if this scene representing his memory was based on Variety Lights. And I think that's the point, is that those are just the same to him.
Which is fair because memory is malleable.
Yeah.
We're all creating our own fictions in our own minds. So fair enough, Fellini. Maybe because it's, so much later and they can show a lot more crassness and lewdness on screen at this time. But this is like kicking it up a notch from Variety Lights.
No,
like
definitely.
The crowds were rowdy there, but this is like you mentioned, a dead cat is hurled at a performer. I mean, there's people getting into fights. There's a lot of language used by audience members and performers heckling back to the audience members.
As the host is like walking off the stage, he's like, and another thing.
Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah, it bummed me out. The scene bummed me out quite a bit to watch, and maybe that's because I've been performing my whole life and that would be my nightmare.
Oh yeah.
to get that kind of response to, to performing anything. I do think the first guy kind of deserved it. His impressions were kind of bad. He's like, this is an impression of a woman taking a shower. He's just like vaguely moving around.
But yeah, the audience devolving because a loud portion of them are only there to see whatever seductive woman dance. Like that is, how that scene goes south in the other movie as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're only satiated when there's a hot lady.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but you're right that we do have the audience argue. The one woman's like, can you just let me watch the show?
Yeah, and then there's a mom whose child needs to pee, and so she's like, here, just go on the theater floor. Someone's like, why are you doing this? And to me it's like then you flash forward to the 70s and it's like, well, everyone's talking about like, wow, people are so promiscuous and people don't have manners. And then you flash back to that time, the late 30s, early 40s, and it's the same. It's not different, really.
Yeah, it may look different, but the crux of the problem is still just dissatisfied people acting out and being horrible.
Yeah, and then this performance gets interrupted by an air raid.
Yeah,
and then we get really probably the reason why tensions are so high, which is that they're deep into World War II at this point, and fascism is rampant in Italy. Wouldn't know a thing about that, but yeah, and then we just get like silence in this air raid shelter after all this noise and emotion and activity in this theater. It's just this very quiet look into this air raid shelter, and then we get another cool shadow sequence with someone running down under a bridge saying like they're bombing us to another guy.
My favorite moment in the shelter is, I think it's where Fellini gets his most explicit. You have one person that's in there with the rest of them that is still fighting the good fight for Mussolini, I guess. Because he like shines this flashlight on someone else and he's like, we've already won. Like as they're actively cowering from bombs that are falling on the city.
Yeah, we're right there at the finish line.
Yeah. It's like
seems like it.
and yeah, how real is that? Like the people that just refuse to not go down with the ship.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we get a tour of the subway tunnels under Rome.
Yeah, we do.
Which was very cool. This is when I started to really like what I was seeing, because Rome is a very old city. And so they're trying to build this, more modern subway line underneath the city. There are already tunnels because the catacombs existed way before the necropolis is in the underground. There are just skeletons in the walls, and they have all this, big modern equipment in order to make this subway tunnel, and they break through. They have instruments so that they're able to tell if there are pockets of, like, essentially air pockets of any kind, where it's not going to be just solid rock. And they find one, and they are supposed to stop digging. It was unclear, like, because they dig through it anyway. To me, it was like it was saying, we're supposed to stop digging, but like let's just see what this is and open it up, and then we'll have to stop, because then the archaeologists are going to have to come in and survey all of this, just like they did with the mammoth tooth that you referenced earlier. They open it, and it's this small little hole, and a couple of them go in, and there are these incredibly preserved paintings and statues in this underground area. And all of a sudden, it was maybe my favorite moment. They say like, oh, it's a Roman house from 2,000 years ago, and they're kind of panning over these pieces of art on the walls, these frescoes. Someone says like, oh, what's happening? And you realize in real time the air is just destroying, because they've been sealed off, so they haven't had fresh air on them, and the air is destroying these. And so just in seconds you're watching 2,000 years of history just disappear, and it's so sad. And to me, I took this moment of like, like when progress goes so quickly without care and thought for like history, that's when major destruction happens.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I think that fits what we saw with the animals. I actually did read the scene differently, but I love what you're saying.
Ooh, how'd you read it?
I felt like it made me think of that last scene in Satyricon with the paintings.
Yes, also that, yes.
With them, preserved on the wall, but it's falling apart. And yeah, I thought Fellini was kind of pointing that, but also saying even with the most care, accidental or not, like the stuff that we think is going to last forever can just be gone in an instant.
Yeah. Ooh, it's brothel time.
Yeah. There's some sex, maybe.
Not one, but two brothels.
But actually not that much sex, because most of them can't afford it. They're just kind of standing around.
Just window shopping.
Yeah. Oh, geez. This series of moments made me say, like, wow, we really can do a lot more than we used to be able to. Because Fellini.
Well, and again, it's Italy, so
sure,
sex is going to be easier to show.
It's 72 at this point, so we've had Last Tango in Paris came out at this point. Yes, I feel like it did. Yeah, same year. So yeah, we're getting more open about sex, but yeah, just because we've seen Fellini's filmography. I mean, there's been a lot of sex workers across his filmography, and it's not been so blatant until now. Yeah,
the first brothel is clearly the lower tier brothel of the two, and it's a bunch of young sailors, who clearly can't afford to even be there, but a lot of the ladies, a lot of the workers are trying to entice them. But really, more what I thought was hilarious was just they weren't really being like, ooh, like, take a look at me. They were negging them. There was a lot of verbal abuse happening. And also, what was sad for me watching this was just all of these sex workers pretty much were just significantly older women. Like, it really bummed me out. Not that, maybe if they love their work, like, good for them. But yeah, it just kind of made me sad, which I think is the intention. Yeah. The variety of like ways that the women displayed their breasts was quite funny to me. Inventive, yes. Well, you gotta like find a way to differentiate yourself, And yeah, that like lower tier brothel is juxtaposed against this high class house, just a quieter, classier atmosphere. The building's interior is much, much nicer. Everyone is dressed more upper class. The women are enticing rather than mostly they do. There's a couple of insults in there, but it's mostly them being like, don't you want a little bit of this? There are respectable madams around, dressed really kind of like they're working in an office. Really quick, I don't know if you read any trivia about this, but I guess I'm blanking on her actual name, but the actress who plays most famously Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, is in this movie as an extra.
Did not realize.
Maybe 30 seconds. Cassandra Peterson, that's her name.
Nice.
Yeah.
I've actually never seen Elvira, so I don't know, but
I saw it in theaters.
I definitely know the iconic image of that character, but that's all I got.
Fair. I mean, she was originally basically just like a fictional host of like scary movie hours on TV, and then they ended up making her character into a movie.
I'm learning so much.
Or using her character in a full-length film. Yeah. Anyway, that doesn't matter at all here. She's not really in it, but I just think that's so. There are two instances of this, and I forgot to bring it up the last couple of episodes, where there's just kind of really random extras that go on to be quite famous. Richard Simmons is in The Clowns as one of the clowns.
Okay.
Richard Simmons, the famous like exercise guy. Rest in peace. He's also, it's not confirmed, but he's supposedly also in Satyricon. You can actually Google Richard Simmons Satyricon, and there's a short clip where it does look to be him to me. Just kind of fun little trivia that I thought was very random. Because yeah, neither of them were into acting. They were just both in Italy, and basically Cassandra Peterson ran into a friend of hers who happened to be the student director on Roma. And he was like, why don't you come and be in the film, like you and your friend? And so they were like, sure. And that's her first ever credit, acting credit.
That's great.
On IMDb. Yeah. But back to this, there's actually a very Elvira-like main or the one that everybody wants at this high class brothel, who comes down alone in the elevator and has this really elaborate kind of leather bodice on.
Which I think there is definitely a subjectivity in the women the film focuses on, because I think I think the film has everyone wanting this woman because that's the one that the Fellini stand-in wants,
Oh, interesting.
I think it's the same reason that earlier in the film, when there's like the courtyard dinner, like one woman gets lingered on by the camera as she walks away. I think it's because he has a type. They're all dark-haired and they all have big butts.
Yes. Yeah, the amount of times that random extras say I like her big ass is actually great. That's not me paraphrasing or like modernizing. They say that. That's in the
someone
translation.
says like, tell me about the women in Rome, and he's like, well, they all got. It's just audio. I can't do the hands, but he's like doing the hands for measuring a fish. He's like, they all got asses like this. Fellini ahead of his time in a number of ways, and definitely an ass man before it was as popular as it is.
Oh, on that subject, did you catch the main madam's name?
I guess not.
Is Assuntina.
Oh my gosh. No, I missed that.
I was like, no way. Oh, that made me laugh.
Anyway, I really derailed us. You were talking about this encounter that the lead character has.
yeah, he goes up the elevator with her and he's immediately asking her, it's very, again, Pretty Woman like, asking her like, how'd you get here? Like, tell me about your kids, and is trying to get her to go on a real date with him. And he's clearly quite taken with this older woman. Because, the actor who's playing the Fellini stand-in is like early 20s at most. And I don't know. I didn't even know quite what to make of this other than, it being semi-autobiographical. And we know Fellini loves his ladies.
Yeah, I think at the point that it's at in the film, I wasn't sure why we spent so much time on it, but I think it does eventually get back to what you were talking about earlier, where it gets compared to the procession at the Catholic Church.
I didn't mean the brothels.
Oh, just that
in
encounter.
general. I more meant his encounter with her, like what that was supposed to be for, other than what I just said.
Fair enough. It did build into the series of women that he's interested in.
Yeah. But then we get to move, as you just hinted at, directly into the papal fashion show, which it's hard to pick. The air destroying the frescoes and the papal fashion show kind of tied, in my opinion. It's literally this rich lady who has invited the Pope and a bunch of cardinals and bishops to a fashion show where she's showing off new designs for religious frocks for men and women in the church. It's incredible. It's this last week I was like, oh, the costume budget must have been crazy for this, but probably the clowns provided those costumes. These were absolutely made for this.
Some of them are just wonderful too.
Oh yeah, we start small. Actually, when it first started, I was like, what? Out loud, I said, what is happening? Because there's this very short person in this kind of raggedy gray shroud that really slowly walks what you later learn to be the literal catwalk runway for this fashion show. And then just is there crouched at the front for the rest of the show. I truly don't know what that was. And there's an announcer talking about each of the garments and their purpose. They have those nun habits that have the giant wings that they're like, this is great for cooling purposes. They're kind of bouncing all. They all have choreography. All the models have choreography that's meant to help show off what's special about their garments that they're wearing. There's a pair of priests in roller skates for speed, I guess. I thought this was really interesting because most of the models are people, but for the papal robes, like for the designs that are clearly specifically for the Pope, it's just kind of on a mannequin that is circulated around, which I took to mean like, yeah, you're not supposed to like impersonate the Pope. Like that's bad. As we know from modern events that have been happening, it's bad to impersonate the Pope. And they're very gaudy. There's one that's literally like, I wrote down Disco Pope. It's like a giant disco ball, essentially. There's all gaudy bishop garb. And then it all leads up to this really big sequence where a stage is revealed and they unveil the Super Pope question mark.
The
Pope 2.0.
The final form, if you play video games.
the final evolution of the Pope Pokemon.
Yes.
Of the Pokemon.
Oh my gosh. It writes itself.
Yeah, and then it is what I thought was so cool is that it is like an old guy in this crazy Pope outfit. There is someone impersonating the Pope at the end of this. Thoughts? What's your take on that?
It's great. It's a massive sequence. It just got increasingly sillier and more insane, and I liked it. Structurally, we mentioned it, but a lot of scenes go on much longer than you think they would. Like that, this film clearly is playing with expected length in scenes. Like just about every time you're like, oh, this scene's gonna wrap up, you're about 2 minutes off, and this scene really culminates that structural mechanic of the film. And it just keeps going.
For me personally, this was where, like, we talked about this with the clowns. And then, as you're saying with this one, there are bits that go on a long time. We see a whole couple musical numbers from this trio of ladies in the variety show that just didn't really need to be there at all. But this I was captivated by. This I thought was the right length of time for me.
I think I thought about the structure a good bit because last week I talked about I wasn't sure if there was intentionality and that disappointed me, but I felt the intentionality on this one.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, what are we doing? Like, what's the point of this? And I think what it is that the camera engages with what Fellini the character, not necessarily Fellini the director, but Fellini the character is interested in at any given time. So if he was captivated, like if the character in the scene is captivated by whatever is occurring, the camera's going to linger there longer than it should. And that's why we do get these random shots of, women walking away, for example. Like, it's really easy. It's like he's looking. But there are also, there's performances, there's this fashion show, there's all kinds of things structurally where I think it's just the camera represents that.
Okay.
Which maybe that's even why that earlier scene is as long as it is, because that character's there and he's interested in this woman, and so we can't cut away.
Yeah,
we get Fellini like showing up at the house of Anna Magnani. That sounds right.
Yeah.
Who's an actress that's in so many films that are blind spots for me. She's in Rome Open City and Mama Roma and Bellissima and Bandito and lots of films that I'm like, wow, those are on my watch list. But yeah, I've never seen her in anything. But she's like, no, I refuse to be a part of what you're making. And she leaves. And that's actually the only time she's in Fellini's filmography. I did look that up, if she ever came back. The only appearance by this actress is that she shows up in this film to be like, I don't want to be a part of this. And that's kind of our capstone on the way Fellini gets to choose how he portrays things. And kind of after that moment, he lets go. We see him one more time in a crowd, but he's not any kind of center of the frame. He's just there, yeah. And that's the last time we see him. After that, we do get a procession to end the film.
Yeah, we do. I wrote down procession alert.
Yeah. But key... Fellini's not there directing. It's not 8.5. It's not the clowns. He's long since gone. We don't see him again, and it's the world moving on.
Very documentary.
Yeah. I think between that scene with the actress and then the way the film ends, I think Fellini lets go of control at the end of this, which is why I really was left wondering, well, what happens next? Because I think for the first time, his answer is something different. Up to this point in his career, his answer has been, if I can grab a hold of it, I can make it. I can do something with it. I can create art. I can make beauty. But he gets rejected, and then he lets go, and that's the way the film ends. This city, this world, whatever it represents, moves on without him.
Well, and I think we get some in those final scenes. We get some clarity about more about his views of what Rome is and what makes Rome. Like, in this scene with Gore Vidal, and other people are talking too. I don't think Vidal is the one to say this, but they talk about how Rome has been reborn again and again, and it will continue to be reborn. Rome is a contradiction. They talk about how it's like Rome is both a virgin and a she-wolf, which is a term they use throughout this. Not sure about that one, but I guess it's better than whore. But yeah, the idea that Rome is so many things all at once. To me, the final moment of the motorcycles riding around Rome, and specifically driving through the Colosseum on the road that goes through the Colosseum, which is crazy. Almost, he's made this point over and over again of like, the old Rome and the new Rome, but it's finally like it's him being again at peace, like you were saying, with like we have both the old Rome and the new Rome. Like they are still the pieces of it. And that is what makes up the parts of this whole city, of this whole ecosystem.
Yeah. La Dolce Vita ended in tragedy with him being like, is this what we're going to do? And this one, very different, ends with after this argument about how the world kind of always falls apart and comes back together. And that's what he's proved across its runtime. He says, okay. Go on without me. I don't know. Yeah, I thought it was neat.
Yeah, I did too. Ultimately, I think, like I said, the back half really, really did it for me. now I'm interested in watching the first half at least, because I think you're right that more context, being able to reference the piece as a whole, would probably help quite a bit.
The big thing about, that those moments that I said the film starts with, that exploration of Caesar with his events and the importance of him and the power of him and all that stuff. I think that is what is bookended by the ending. I think it's Fellini admitting, like, okay, I've created all this stuff that, again, this is still at the height of Fellini's career. Like, people see his name on something and they show up. I think it's him saying that he's going to fade away, and that's okay. And he no longer has to care so much about how it all looks or how it all works together or what people are going to care about, because at the end of the day, the world does just move on. So I think he compares himself to Caesar at the end of this. Like, maybe not in, they're obviously have different influences, but
a great figure in Rome's history that is
there you go.
Since faded away, but
is
still in the public knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he's saying, like, if my great works are looked at as something as silly as this field trip where they walk across a pond, or whether people reference it but don't really care about the meaning of it, like, it's fine, because that's how the world works. And yeah, I thought that was beautiful.
Yeah. Well, have we reached that point? Would you recommend the film?
I would. I think this is once again the in context recommendation.
Yeah.
I think Fellini knew that people knew him before seeing this, and I think it plays with that a lot. With that said, I mean, maybe the film resists what I'm talking about, because the film seems to say, like, let people take what they want and move on. So maybe you should just check it out. Let it be your first Fellini. Who knows? But I think for the discussion being had, and for how the artist has evolved since his previous, statements in film, whether that's Nights of Cabiria or La Dolce Vita or 8.5, I think it is more powerful if you've seen everything. And watch it with someone that you're going to talk about it with, because otherwise it's pretty hard to access this thing. But yeah, ultimately, I'm especially after talking through it with you, I think there really is a lot here to unlock, and that I think I'd get even more out of on a revisit. So yes, with all of those caveats, I do recommend the film. What about you?
I don't think I was going to.
That's fair.
However, I think this is a light recommendation from me. I agree with your caveats, but I also agree that the film is kind of telling you that it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And for my two favorite scenes alone, I do think it's worth it. The frescoes being destroyed scene, and then the papal fashion show. I think those are both incredible sequences. I think it helps to go into this thinking of it more as a documentary, even though it's not, and it's in some ways less of a documentary than The Clowns was. Don't go in looking for plot, because it's not going to be plot driven. If you want a plot, don't watch this. It's about Rome.
I think that's part of, other than him letting go in a way that referenced his other work and the procession, which is such an iconic Fellini image at this point. I think the other reason this felt like such a statement or a final moment at this phase of his career is because it does have the non-narrative structure of Satyricon, but the docufiction of Director's Notebook and The Clowns, and yeah, it's taking all these pieces that he's been developing and putting it into one pretty big thing. It's a lot.
I will say my other caveat, and unfortunately I know that this is coming still, is that I'm getting a little bit tired of these formats, or of his continued exploration of, like, himself and the kind of meta direction that often takes. And maybe I can kind of see this being my overall takeaway for Fellini once we finish his entire filmography. I've loved him the most when it has been like story and character driven.
Sure.
I think Knights of Cabiria has been the peak for me still. And that's including 8.5, which I know is a hot take that, not everyone's going to agree with. That's fine.
At this point, like, actually, Knights of Cabiria has the highest average of his films at this point on Letterboxd.
Rightfully so. I knew I was right. The people are with me on this one. That's good to know. Yeah. And I know I did look forward just a little bit slightly. And I know that Intervista is another kind of, I don't want to say sentimental because I don't think this is sentimental. I don't think it's a sentimental look at Rome, but it's a retrospective. That's us. It's a retrospective of his career in Intervista is, and I'm kind of like, but I want more of your career now. You're alive now, sir, in this time, and I want more stuff. I want to see more new stuff. So yeah, there's the level of meta that he's getting at this point in his career was something I had no idea about prior to this series, and yeah, it's not my favorite thing in the world because I think he has. I would love to see other things from him, and I know we do also have that in store as well. There are more narrative, as far as I'm aware. There are at least a couple more narrative focused films in store, so that's good. But yeah, I'm starting to overall not be like, ooh, what are we gonna get this week, and be like, I was pretty trepidatious at the start of this watch, and I overall enjoyed it still. Like, I just recommended it.
Yeah.
But
no, that's fair. I think you put into words what I was kind of trying to talk about a week or two ago, where it does feel like we're at the end of his career, but we're still not. We're at the back half of the midpoint, but we're still kind of in the middle. And yeah, you're right that it does feel like he's wrapping up. And I guess that's what it is he's not, well, Satyricon definitely pushed forward. That was something totally new, but a lot of his other stuff has been looking back for a while now. So yeah, interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll see. Maybe I'll surprise myself and love later iterations of this kind of style that he's in right now. But I have no idea because I haven't seen him yet.
I didn't know there was more documentary anything ahead, so and yeah, I felt myself a little disappointed when you said that just now, so
yeah, I was pretty bummed. I was pretty bummed. I was like, oh no, in 2 films I'm gonna have to do this again.
Interesting. Yeah, I think I liked it here, but I think this kind of was the best it could be based on how he approaches that. So
that is how I feel.
Oh well, we'll see when we get there.
Prove me wrong, Rico.
Yeah, Federico, as he's referred to one time here. I thought that was so lovely.
I would call him Fed.
Oh, geez. If you agree or disagree with anything we've said here, if you have different interpretations on anything within the film, feel free to write to us, retrospectivecinema@gmail.com. You can also comment on Spotify. That's what Courtney did. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at retro_sin, CIN. And you can also find us on Letterboxd. I'm at Ryan Loves Film.
And I'm at Annie Morell. One day I'll get all my movies up there.
Yeah.
Today is
you were caught up.
Not that
it was
day.
Going so well.
I was caught up. This is what I do every time, though. I get caught up and then I'm like, wow, I've only got a couple to log. And now I have 12 films to log.
Mm-hmm.
But oh well. Next week, we're not doing Intervista, even though it kind of sounded like that's what I was saying.
Yeah, the last rewatch for me.
Yeah, and this is all new to me. So Amarcord will be next week. I have little to no idea what this is. So hoping that I get what I just asked for.
I adore this film, so I'm excited to come back to it. This is, love this thing.
Okay. Well, that's a good sign. Until then, whether you're watching Fellini's various docufictions or riding into Amarcord with us, happy watching.